And we said it's going to be a busy news day, and it will begin with Congressman Mike Waltz, who's joining us for the weekly briefing today on WNDB. Congressman Waltz, thanks for talking with us at this time.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. Happy to be with you.
All right. I want to first ask you about the piece that you wrote for the Washington Examiner. It was an opinion piece, came out a couple of days ago, and it outlines what will happen if Joe Biden takes the oath of office in January. Congressman, do you think that the American people realize just how far left this agenda will be and how it will forever change the country? I appreciate you writing it. Do you think that, or did you pen that piece because you feel they really don't know what's coming?
Yeah, well, I think there's two pieces there, Mark. One is, we often talk about how to introduce reforms, how to improve this country, how to move it forward. And I want people to understand that the left, and I deal with them and see them very close and personal every day in the House of Representatives, don't have that same vision. They believe that America is fundamentally flawed. It's misogynistic. It's racist. It's colonialist. And they're not looking to improve it. They're looking to kind of rip it down to its studs, so to speak, and rebuild it in their image. So that's one piece. But the other thing from the op-ed I wanted everybody to understand is this is bigger than just Biden versus Trump. And there will be some follow-on things that happen if Biden wins that Pelosi and Schumer will do to essentially lock down power so that the GOP will find it almost impossible to come back. So a couple of things. One, if Biden wins, we have almost certainly lost the Senate as well. Schumer will then be in charge. He has already telegraphed that he will get rid of the filibuster, which means they can fast-track legislation through the Senate in a way that you cannot now. Secondly, Pelosi will essentially repass. She already passed it once, but it'll be national ballot harvesting, how California does it, where they can send activists out for up to weeks after an election and gather up ballots in unlimited numbers and send those back in. She'll make that national in every state in the union. And then the final piece is statehood for Washington, D.C., which would add 2 more Democratic senators. So I just want folks to understand what's at stake here. And then finally, Pelosi barely got her speakership, only by 2 votes this last time. So the progressives will look at her and say, here is our agenda that you will put on Biden's desk if you want to be speaker again, and that is the Green New Deal, defunding ICE, the Border Patrol, actually defunding the federal prison system, and on down the list, nationalize health care, and will take us in a direction that it will be almost impossible to recover from. So I don't mean to make everybody want to drink after reading that or listening to this. But I just want folks to understand the agenda that play, and that there's a lot of people who think, oh, well, we'll just win. Republicans will just come back in 2024. No, they will create and change the rules to the extent that will make it incredibly difficult.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this. You know both Ed Markey and Joseph Kennedy III. What happened in Massachusetts the other night? Ed Markey had the aid of AOC and a few other people. And I was wondering, is that part of that leftist agenda? Does it have that strong of a footing that it helped Markey, or was it not in play in that race?
No, it absolutely was. And Joe Kennedy, who is not moderate. I mean, he is. I like the guy personally, but he is a Massachusetts liberal. Was cast as a moderate, right? So we have a situation now in the Democrat Party where folks like Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and others look moderate compared to the progressives that are coming in, and compared to how liberal and in fact in many ways socialist their policies are. Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders, is the only one I think really being honest about it. And he said during the convention, things that were viewed as absolutely radical just a few years ago are now mainstream in the Democrat Party. He's being candid and honest about it. I think others are trying to downplay it. Kamala Harris is the most liberal senator in the Senate right now by her voting record, yet the New York Times is calling her moderate and pragmatic. So it's just about being candid and honest about their agenda. But what I want people to understand is also the shifting of the rules that will happen, so that it will really stack the deck against Republicans coming back into power.
One more political question before I move to a security issue, and that is that I heard this morning on television where Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York had actually said, look, if President Trump wants to walk down the streets of New York City, he better come with an army. Is that a threat?
That is, I mean, I'll be honest, Mark, my jaw kind of hit the floor when I saw that today. It certainly sounds like it to me, and it sounds like a threat to the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States. It is wildly irresponsible. He needs to retract it. He needs to apologize. You know, a lot of people like to accuse the president of inciting violence. I think it's absolutely the opposite. The president is saying the federal resources are at your disposal, mayors and governors, to quell this violence that's going on. But here we have a governor essentially sounded like a threat to me, Mark, and it's really almost unbelievable.
Turning to something that didn't get the big headlines, I think because there's COVID and everything else that's out there. The Russians have been up to their old tricks. They were buzzing around Alaska last week. They came within, I think, 50 miles of Alaska. They were doing military exercising up in the Bering. Is that not a reminder that we shouldn't take our eye off the ball in terms of the aggressiveness of Russia's military buildup?
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, this wasn't just a few ships. It was several dozen and even more aircraft. This is about two things, Mark. This is about the Arctic, and it's about trade. So with the polar ice cap pulling back, both the Chinese and Russians are looking at sending ships to the northern side, which used to be impossible, to the northern side of Canada, and they want to own those trade routes. It would cut the shipping times by almost in half, rather than going through the Panama Canal or through the Suez Canal, and then also they don't have to deal with the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal. So it's about owning those trade routes, but even more importantly, it's about the gas and oil that's up there. And this is why one of the things I've pushed on the Armed Services Committee is kind of reorienting, one towards China, but the other is towards the Arctic, and why we're looking, and the president is very aggressively looking at expanding our number of icebreakers and being able to compete up there, because we have to be able to protect our economy, and then it's also about energy. Finally, that's why the United States, being energy independent, primarily through fracking, is so critical, and that is something the Biden administration would take away. Let's just look at California right now with the rolling blackouts, because they've taken away nuclear, they've taken away fracking, they've taken away gas, in this drive towards their own mini Green New Deal, and look where they are now. That's where they want to take the country, and it's something we have to take a stand against.
The president made a statement in an effort to make a point, Congressman, about his concerns that it might take an extra amount of time to determine what the elections are, to the point of suggesting that people try to vote twice, or you get something in the mail, send it in, then show up, and it'll show you where I understand what the president was trying to do, but I wanted to get your comment to see if I heard it right, because the media is making it sound like the president is instructing citizens to break the law, and I know that wasn't his intent.
No, that's not his intent. The White House has since come out and said as much. Look, what the president is getting at is there are all kinds of states and Democrat leaders who are pushing 100% vote by mail, blasting ballots out like junk mail to voter rolls that haven't been updated, where people have died, they've moved, they're no longer eligible, and as we just saw in New York, they don't have the infrastructure to handle the influx. So in New York, they had just one congressional primary, and they received so many mail-in ballots. They didn't have the signature databases. They didn't have the ability to count. And even after 6 weeks, they had to invalidate up to 20% of the votes. So put that on a national scale. And what the president, I think, was trying to say was ensure your vote counts. And if you can, and we can do it responsibly, go vote in person. If you can't, get that ballot in early enough and make sure you follow your state's rules, to make sure that vote counts.
Finally, listeners have been asking if I have any information on this. I don't, so I'm going to ask you. Has there been any discussion at any level in any place that you know of a follow-up to the president's statement several weeks ago about having an alternative health care plan? He had said something like 2 weeks, and then that time expired. I've kind of lost track of it, Congressman. Do you know if there's any discussion going on now?
I haven't. And right now, all of the discussion is focused on whether we do or don't, what it looks like, another round of stimulus, Mark, which I think is going to be rolled into the end of the year appropriations bills. And we may or may not have a shutdown because of it. I absolutely think that would be ridiculous and tragic if we do. But I think that impasse we're seeing in stimulus is going to roll into the end of the year funding. But where the conversations I've had with the president is we have to take back the House and introduce measures like he has for prescription drugs that lower the cost of care. And those are free market principles, not a government takeover of health care that's just going to pass those costs on in higher taxes, which, again, Bernie is at least honest about in his plans. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and others are not. So those are the discussions I've had, but we'll certainly check and get back to you.
Very good. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for squeezing us in this afternoon. Stay well, and we'll visit next week.
Okay, Mark. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, Congressman. Congressman Mike Waltz.